and value that when you get to meet people and you know and can develop a relationship with your colleagues, just as you would your students, that brings safety, and that brings just a sense of everyone working together towards the same goal. So you'll see those pictures throughout the slide. Our inclusion activity is going to focus on allowing you to meet one new person today and network with someone else you might not know. So for this, we'd like to invite you to think about your past month personally and professionally, and/or what song might best describe your past month and why? When prompted, you will stand and make eye contact with someone whom you don't know yet. Ask you to pause. I'll give you some processing time to think. You might even want your phone for a reference. When prompted, please share your name and where you teach in your current role. Partner A will share their song and their why. Partner B, we'd like to invite you to listen, pause, and paraphrase, and then switch roles. Be prepared to share with our whole group at the end. You'll know that we're ready to collect your attention here throughout our afternoon when one of the three of us steps into this position and our hand will go up. If you would just be mindful when you see that to also model that behavior as well, so we can keep ourselves focused throughout our afternoon. So this might sound like this. I'll stand and make eye contact with someone I don't know. I'll introduce myself. Hi, I'm Aubrey Anderson. I teach first grade at Jamestown.
Stephanie Bullhines. I teach first grade at Jamestown.
I'll serve as partner A. So my song is a well-known Justin Bieber song, and it goes like this. Baby, 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 oh. Because personally, we are expecting our second child in February, so we've really been excited to add that excitement to the last couple months of school, actually 24 weeks. So Steph would
pause. So it sounds like the past 24 weeks has been a very exciting journey for you and for Chad, and as you're expecting a new child, so congratulations.
Thank you. We would switch, and then be prepared to share our whole group. What questions might you have about the next 2 to 3-ish minutes? Take a moment, process, think about a song. When ready, stand and make eye contact with someone you don't know yet. So knowing that we value relationships and we value you as a person first, either professionally or personally, what might you be willing to share about either your journey the past month, or your partner's journey the past month with their song and their why? So either yours or your partner's. I'm going to utilize a strategy called airplane stack, and I'm going to take a moment just to explain what that is. I utilized this strategy in another meeting, and someone said, "Am I the airplane?" And I thought, I really failed to tell someone what this is. So the airplane stack strategy is just a metaphor for what who does the planes?
Pilot?
Not the air traffic control. Thank you. The air traffic controller will just name what plane. So Boeing 577, you are going to be first on the landing strip. Next plane, you're going to be second. You're going to be third. So we're just calling out 1, 2, 3 right in a row, and then we'll come back to 1, back to 2, and back to 3. The airplane stack strategy. So who might be willing to be our 1? Thanks, Melissa. And 2. Thank you. 3. Okay. Melissa.
So I picked Crazy. I think it's You Drive Me Crazy by Britney Spears. It's been a crazy fall. We had our principal announced that he was leaving in the last week in August, second week in August. And so he started out the school year, and then we had, for 1 week, And then we had no principal for a few weeks, and then we have a new principal, and it's going great, but it was just crazy there for a while. We have new Lucy Hawkins reading and writing curriculum, and we're trying to dive into that. And I'm pregnant and due the same day that Aubrey is, which I found out today. And so it's just been a crazy fall, but fun, but crazy.
So for you, it sounds like you have exercised your right to be flexible. And while many variables have been coming at you throughout the past month and 2.5 months, you have really kept positive intentions and held positive thinking through that. And it sounds like you have, this has really better equipped you to handle students in your classroom that might come to you with many variables. Yeah, that's tough. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeff. The song that I chose was Jack Johnson's "Slow Down This Train." Got a 4-year-old at home, an 8-month-old at home.
Oh man.
And this job is consuming, right? And you can always put more time into it. I'm just wishing that things would slow down, a bit more time at home. Also wrapping up the quarter, the 9-week mark, and already we're 25% of the way through the year. I feel like it's moving pretty quick. So I'm just wanting things to kind of slow down a little bit.
So Jeff, for you, it sounds like you recognize that as teachers we wear many hats. So you've surfaced the hat of you as a parent and you as a teacher and psychologist and a social worker and the PT, and those hats can often can be a fast track where we forget to really slow down and think about like the most important things that matter to us in our lives, which probably many of you is your family. So thanks for recognizing that, and I think a lot of us in the room can really connect with that song as well.
I'm going to share my partner's song because I like this song. But it's My Life by Bon Jovi, and just that life is short, every day's a gift. Just kind of treat it that way and live it to the fullest, and just enjoy the days as they come.
So for your partner, it was really good to just be reminded of every day we wake up, it truly is a gift. We are teaching in a profession that is not always as rewarding as we would like. It's rewarding in different ways. So we need to just appreciate the moment that we're in and each new day that we're given. Thanks for sharing that. Will you please read the why for our agenda? You'll also notice that our agenda is posted over here to my left in a fabulous fall fashion.
Right, so at this time we would like to provide you with an opportunity to connect back to our prior learning from our September session. And so in just a few minutes we're going to hand out a packet to you that has some learning or additional learning about focusing and funneling questions. So we're going to utilize a strategy called A, B, Each, Teach as we read this piece of text together. So for this strategy, you will be working with an elbow partner. So the first thing you'll need to do is identify an elbow partner and determine who will serve as partner A and partner B. Partner A is going to read one section of the text, and partner B is going to read another section of the text. And you'll notice that it's not a designated section, so you will be able to choose those sections with your partner. After you and your partner have completed reading your sections, please take time, or we'd like to invite you to teach that section to your partner. You will know that we are ready to move on from this activity when you see me enter this space with my arm up like this. What questions might you have about our next few minutes of time?
Aubrey, might you be willing to clarify what pages of the packet it's going to be?
The pages of your packet include page 36 and 37. Thank you.
knowing that one of our learning intentions for today is to describe the difference between focusing and funneling questions, might there be someone who would be willing to share their current thinking around that? Thank you, Taylor.
My thinking is that funneling question is really what I want them to answer, and it leads them down the path that I designate, whereas focusing questions, I'm kind of meeting them on their paths and then helping them to guide them to a general understanding with those key points.
So you're recognizing that funneling questions really puts you at the center and you are dictating the conversation, whereas focusing questions really puts the student in the driver's seat and you are there to guide them along their journey. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, next we are going to move into the mediative portion of our agenda, and we're going to utilize a grouping strategy called Stir the Classroom. So I'd like to invite you to go back to the last time you were at Buffalo Wild Wings and you ordered some things there. So in just a moment, we'd like to invite you to think about where you might fit on our signature sauces and dry seasonings
Continuum.
Would you push the clicker for me?
Yes.
Line up according to your flavor preference against the wall. So you'll see at the top for my ladies or gentlemen who really like not a lot of spice and just everything nice. Sweet barbecue, so that is over here near this side of our wall. If you are feeling towards the middle, you like a little bit of nice and a little bit of spice, I would invite you to hang out towards the Asian zing in the middle. And then if you are all spice, you might determine that you need to fit more in the blazing category towards the end. So take a moment, think about where you might be on the sauce continuum.
The purpose of this activity is to, it's our first learning intention. So we want to build a sense of community and trust and rapport. And we know that when you sat down today, you probably sat down by your friends. We don't blame you. We would have done the same thing. But we can't build community if we stay in the same silos we're always in. And so the purpose of this is to just continue to build your professional learning network and expand your perspective. So that is why we're doing it. The way it might look and sound is that you'll just line up against this wall. We are asking that you bring everything with you because you are going to be invited to make some new friends. So we'll know you're ready when you're lined up, and Aubrey will support you in the next portion.
All right, it looks like we're there. So we're going to number you off from 1 to 8. So if you wouldn't mind just remembering your number. Once you find your new group of friends, would you please locate a table in the room and sit down and introduce yourself to each other. You'll know we're ready to move on to our next portion when you see one of us enter this space with our hand up like this.
How might they be grouping, Aubrey?
By the number I give them.
Thank you for being flexible and vulnerable and introducing yourself to your new group. So as Aubrey said, we're going to move into the next portion of the agenda, which is mediative questions. If you're wondering what is a mediative question, that is the perfect place to be. We're going to work to build collective understanding through some activities together this afternoon. So we're going to invite you right now to imagine that you're working with a student, and the student is trying to solve 7 multiplied by 9. Utilizing your knowledge around focusing questions, in just a minute we're going to pass out a note card, and we're going to invite you to try and write down a focusing question that you might ask this student as they are trying to solve 7 multiplied by 9. So what might your focusing question look or sound like? I'm going to use a facilitator move and foreshadow that we're going to come back to this question after we take some time to understand what a mediative question is, and we'll be able to edit the question that we wrote down first with our new thinking in just a little bit. what questions might we have about the next 60-ish seconds of posing a question on a note card? Perfect. Happy crafting of questions.
Andrew, you said questions. Should we come up with one or just one?
Yep, one question. One individual question that you would ask. Thank you for asking those clarifying questions. Judging by the number of times moving, it looks like we've had enough time. I'm going to take a minute and move space because I'm going to step out of facilitator and step into presenter. So I want to preserve this space. Talk about what is a mediative question. Mediative questions have 3 different characteristics. Today we're going to look at one of these 3 criteria. So mediative questions are invitational. What that means is, and I'm going to use a really extreme example just to make a point, that when we ask our questions, we ask it in an approachable tone. So I wouldn't say, what is 7 multiplied by 9? That's not approachable. We want to make sure that when we ask these questions, we ask them in a really invitational way. So what might be your thinking around the strategies that you utilize today? We could open up our palms. That signifies to the person that we're speaking to that we're inviting them to answer. We also could be mindful of getting down to their eye level. That sends a tone that I'm no longer authoritative. I don't have the power, that I want to create something in the middle of both of us. So just something to be mindful of. Invitational doesn't just mean our voice, it means the way we position our bodies. Mediative questions are also purposeful in the way they engage cognitive demand. So when I ask you, what is 7 multiplied by 9? That's a very surface level question. It's not a mediative question because it's funneling the students to produce an answer. When we ask mediative questions, as Becca, yes? Becca mentioned earlier, or no, it wasn't Becca. Who was it? I want to give credit where it's due. Taylor. Yeah, Taylor. Mentioned earlier, when we ask focusing questions, it's kind of scary because the kids are driving the bus and we don't know where that bus is going. So we have to be really flexible with what we ask. But our questions are getting into students' thinking. We're not talking about solutions. We're really trying to understand where they're at. And the last thing is, our questions are intentional. It's not about the quantity of questions we ask. Mediative questions is about the quality of questions we ask, the way we pace ourselves and we pace students to respond. So we've all been in situations before where we've been asked questions and it's rapid fire and we don't have time to respond, and that makes us feel some type of way, usually angst or nervous or just unsettled. And so when we ask mediative questions, our pace is slow. We're meeting the student or the coachee or whoever we're talking to right where they're at. So there's 3 components. Today we're just going to focus our learning around that first part, making our questions invitational, because there are 5 components within that one component. We wanted to give you bite-sized chunks that were practical. What questions might we have about mediative questions, knowing that we're going to take a chance in just a second to practice this skill? So, in just a second, we're going to invite you and your group to stand up next to a poster, and we'll get further directions on what that will look and sound like. But we're going to use a strategy that's known as gallery walk. On the posters, you'll notice that there's questions that are already written. We know that those questions are funneling, and they are not mediative. Our task as a group is to create mediative questions out of the questions that are up there. So we're starting with funneling, we'll work our way through focusing, and by the end of 4 rotations, we're hoping to have mediative questions on our posters. So this is a time for us to take risks, to talk it out with our teammates. We don't have to have the answers, we're just going to really grapple with it so that when we go back to our classrooms, we can remember that feeling and how we interrupted our status quo of our normal questioning. So all of us has a pattern. This exercise is going to help us break our pattern and think about questioning in a different way. So the way that we're going to do that is first you're going to identify a chart paper. We'll maybe help you do that. We're going to confine it because we have less people here than we did on the first day. So 4 groups will choose one of the 4 posters from the blue section, and 4 groups will choose one of the posters from the red section. If you start in blue, you're going to continue to rotate through the blue questions. If you start in red, your group will continue to rotate through the red. So you'll have an opportunity to recraft every one of the questions in your group. The reason we're doing this is so that you can think about these 5 layers to invitational language. And so at every question, you'll get a new layer to think about and consider as you and your team work to craft a question. So what this might look like is Aubrey, Steph, and I might start here. What is the slope? We'll read the question. We'll look at the prompt on the screen to consider a characteristic that the question might be lacking. And then the 3 of us will work together to recraft this question, keeping in mind the new component that's on the screen. So we're going to rewrite one question. That's it. Quality, not quantity. After we notice that every group has had a chance to recraft their question, Steph, Aubrey, and I, when invited, will rotate back to the first chart in this section, and we'll get another prompt with a different quality to look at questions through. So by the end, we'll have 4 additional questions on this chart so that we can look at the journey that the question went through with our collective thinking around it. Just get a lot of directions. So what questions might we have about this protocol as it currently sits? Knowing that if you have a question, there's probably others in the room that also have that same question. Okay, so I'm wondering if for simplicity's sake, if Jennifer, your group, John, your group, Heather's group, and then Travis, Jeff. So the first part of an invitational question is that the question includes plural forms. So when we ask questions, you've heard Aubrey and Steph ask already, what questions might you have? Question, the word, has an S on the end of it purposefully. It invites you to think of more than one way. So looking at the question that's up there right now on your chart, how might you tweak that question to make it include a plural or plural forms? So go ahead and engage in dialogue with your team about reshaping that question. And when you're ready, feel free to write down your question on the chart, keeping in mind just plural forms.
My question, they actually brought it up. I thought, like, for what is the answer, my thought process was I was going to say, what answers might you have? That's how I was thinking. But then you had mentioned maybe we were supposed to...
What strategies did you use to solve?
Are we totally framing it using a...
Great question. So we want to use the question that's up there as our anchor. And so we want to make tweaks to that question without losing the essence of the question. So it's okay to wordsmith it, but just make sure the essence of it is there. What I mean is don't go to left field and come up with a completely different question. Use what's anchored there and just tweak it. Yes, Taylor.
So we don't need, or we should use one of the 2 stems?
Great question. We don't want to confine you to what's on the screen. So we were hesitant to even put those up there, but we thought you would appreciate some more context. So don't feel limited to the questions that are up there. Be creative and use your knowledge with questioning that you already have to build those questions. Tentative language. Tentative. So when we ask the question, we're asking it in a really calm way, but the words we use also imply that we're really being gentle with the way that we're asking it. So if you look up at the screen, you'll see two
Which
words
way are we going with this
that
activity?
are interjected. The first question, might. Might is tentative language. It doesn't imply anything. It just is asking, what are you considering? And the second, the phrase, some of. Some of. And then in the third part, hunches is that mediative or tentative language. So we're going to ask that you rotate to your right. If you're at the end, you'll go back to the front. And we'll ask that you use the second question that's there now and recraft that second question to include tentative language.
We worked so hard the first round to add in a plural, so we did well. This round, we had to keep that same word usage in our question for the second.
Yeah. So Jill's wondering, as we progress, if we're just holding on to that one piece of the characteristic, and I think it's up to you. If you want to use your knowledge from plurals and tentative, and then whatever the third part is, to recraft the question completely, we trust you. We believe in you. So feel free to do so. This is a journey, so we're just journeying through this process. So feel efficacious enough to make whatever changes you might feel can help. Next part of an invitational question is that they include positive presuppositions. So when we ask questions, we're assuming positive out of whomever we're asking. So there's two examples up on the screen. You might be willing to highlight the positive presuppositions that exist in those questions. Yeah, Melissa,
I would say emerging on the first one. Something's happening, something's bubbling up. And then on the second one, the word successful.
Yeah, so those two words in those sentences imply positive things. As Melissa said, emerging holds the positive presupposition that the person is thinking positively, and successful just implies success. So we encourage you, as you venture to your next poster, what positive presuppositions might you add to the question that is currently there? Consider, and I think in our opinion, we're going to insert some bias because the easiest one for us when thinking about crafting mediative questions is your question open-ended? So we know there's already a great question that exists at your next poster. But if you could reframe it one more time now using all of the knowledge that we just gathered, we'd invite you to go ahead and try and recraft that one final question. We'll know you're ready to move on when you're back in your seats. So that'll let us know that you've recrafted that final question. So go ahead and rotate one more time.
All right, if you could turn your attention this way. Thinking back to that triple track agenda, knowing that learner experience is one thing that we value in continued learning. We're going to move to questioning students. So we practiced forming these types of questions together. We've talked about funneling and focusing questions. Now we're going to bring that back to students, and we're going to provide you with an experience to watch. So knowing that our passion is the role that we're currently in right now, and that speaks a lot to our identity and values and beliefs. It's very tricky to allow someone to enter your classroom who you do not yet know or you don't have a relationship with. So when you think about a principal coming into your classroom that you don't know yet, or having visitors in your classroom, it can be a little bit intimidating. So we know and value that we have to have that relationship first. So knowing that you're going to get an opportunity to enter Steph's classroom in just a minute, she's taken a risk and been very brave to allow us to enter her classroom and her space and get a little sneak peek inside a portion of her day. We want to just be mindful of a few things. So the risk that she took, we want to be mindful of that. We also want to keep her safety as a priority, knowing that we are all on a journey, and this is a step or a stop in Steph's journey. is something to be mindful of. So if Steph looks at this video 10 years from now, she's going to have different feelings about it. Additionally, the craft of questioning, we want to remind you that our lens when we watch this video is to try to see it through a lens of the facilitator and questioner. So however there might be other things going around in her room that you could pick up on, we're going to challenge you to narrow your focus on the facilitator moves of questioning and how that elicits thinking from a student. And her student that we're going to be speaking to is, or seeing in here, is Levi. And then the last thing, we're going to be collecting and analyzing facts, and we're not going to place our judgment or create any bias about Steph's classroom or her teaching ability when we watch this. So this also, you'll see the success criteria and learning intention there, so that connects well to our second success criteria and learning intention. Please watch with the lens. You will be able to record your thinking if you turn to page 3 in your yellow packet. The top will say observation and evidence collection forms, so you'll see a spot for the coach. Oh, sorry. Is that opposite?
Maybe opposite.
Thank you. The last page, you'll see teacher evidence, which Steph is serving in that role. You'll see the student evidence. You'll see Levi in that role, and then any other notes that you'd like to write down. So thank you, Steph, for allowing us to enter your space.
What might you be willing to share about your thinking today, number 20? So I first heard you say, Levi, that you recognized that this 10 frame had 8. I'm wondering if we could start there. How did you know that that one had 8?
Because I knew 3 plus 5.
So you added 5 and 3 to make 8. What did it sound like in your head to get from 5 and 3 more to get to 8? So you said that you added 5 and 3 to get to 8. What did it sound like to add 5 and 3?
I counted in my head like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 2 on the top, and then 3 on the top, and then 4, 5, 6, and then 3 on the bottom, 4, 5, 6.
So you started here with these 2, and then you counted 3, 4, 5.
Wait, no, I saw, like, I counted 3, 4, 5, 6 on the bottom because I knew that the top one was 2, and then the other one was 3. So, and then at the bottom I counted 3, 4, 5, 6.
So you started with these 2, and then you moved down to these 3.
So like, those 2, and then 3, 1 and 3 on the top.
Right here?
And then, and then I counted 3, 4, 5, 6 on the bottom.
Okay, so when you put these 2 and the 3 together, what did that get you to?
5.
Okay, so you're at 5, so 2 and then 3 more got you to 5. So you changed your thinking there. And then how did you get to 8 total dots?
On the bottom I have 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay. So you went from 5, 3,
6, 7, 8.
Oh, okay. So you went from 5, and then you counted on 6, 7, 8. Okay. So Levi, I think I'm following you. So you started off and saw a group of 2 and 3, and that made 5. And then you counted on 6, 7, 8. Therefore, you knew that there were 8 circles in the first 10 frame. Okay. Now what's the next step?
And then, I can't remember that.
What might you do next?
Oh yeah. I counted on my fingers. I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So you counted each of these dots.
7 more.
Okay. So you counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you knew there were 7 dots in this 10th frame. So Levi, now I'm wondering if you could help us understand how you went from 8 plus 7 and you got to 15. What did that sound like in your brain? So you went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And how did you get to 15?
Because I knew 8 plus 7 equals 15.
How do you know that?
Because last year in math we did a pig that was about 15.
So some of us might be wanting to understand how you learned that in kindergarten as well. So what would it sound like in your head or with a tool to add 8 plus 7?
Like, are you saying how can we use tools?
How might you solve 8 plus 7 so that we can understand what happens in your brain when you do that? Sure, could you explain that to me?
At this time, we'd invite you to just take 60 seconds to capture your thoughts that you wrote down, or just summarize some of the things that you noted. If you could wrap up your thoughts. All right, knowing that this is an opportunity for us to just be mindful and protect staff in this space, we're going to stick to a tight protocol. So I'm going to invite you now to share a notice that you pulled from the video and then follow it up with a wondering. So, might there be someone that has a noticing or wondering from our video? That might sound like I noticed.
I noticed. I don't know if I have a
I'm
wondering
wondering.
but can I just do the notice?
You sure can.
I noticed that Steph did a great job of not assuming anything that the student was saying. All of her teacher moves reflected exactly what the student was sharing, where it's very easy as a teacher to know what you want the student to do or the strategy they should be using, but to just model exactly their thinking. She did a good job of that.
So, John, you're surfacing the fact that Steph was really listening to learn. Instead of putting the words in Levi's mouth, she really used her ability to question to get Levi to reflect and explain. I wonder what might have happened if Steph would have left it as well, I just know 8 plus 7 is 15 because I learned that in kindergarten. Thanks for surfacing that. Becca.
Looking at the list of the invitational characteristics we practiced, I noticed she did a really good job with open-ended, tentative language and the approachable voice. So she was keeping those characteristics in her question.
So you're noticing that in that authenticity of that experience, Steph was able to craft some of those questions, be mindful of those layers that we've learned about today.
I noticed that even with the extended amount of time it took for him to explain, he never became frustrated. I think because of the questioning that Steph was doing, it made him feel comfortable. And continuing to be in the hot seat there for a little bit, we never got frustrated with her. Except for one time he said, wait, what?
Wait, what?
Then he
Yeah.
posed that question in a comfortable way, and he totally kept going and deliberating.
So Heather, you're really speaking to the time that Steph has put in to build a classroom community of learners where all thinking is valued, and she's really honoring the thinking and the work of this student Levi, and really helping him form his identity as a mathematician.
I'm going to add on to what Heather had said, and I noticed that she kept rephrasing the questions in different ways every time in order to successfully capture his thinking correctly, to make sure that she was understanding him and